Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have the HUAWEI Mate X6 and we are going to unbox it. You have to start. This device has had a launch price in Mexico of 36,799 pesos. An exaggeratedly expensive device. Although in the initial stage, they are applying a fairly aggressive promotion, so if you are interested, you need to acquire it at this stage. In the description, I leave the link to the official store in case you want to take advantage of these promotions, of course. On screen, you saw the reference price in dollars. Now join me to know what comes inside this box. In this case, I have an edition that is not yet packaged as globally, so you see many things in Chinese as a unit for review. So it does not come 100% configured for this region, but I think you quickly understand the care that the manufacturer warns you. For example, do not remove the mica. Do not use this device with sharp objects. Possibly that you do not press in the camera area, and finally that it is normal to perceive some sounds of the hinge, so let's remove this plastic. Then directly we have found the device that definitely anticipates that we will have a spectacular design in a moment. I tell you its specifications point by point so you have more knowledge. But definitely that the design can become one of its strongest points. But before we focus fully on the specifications, let's know what else comes in the box. And, well, in this first box comes a case that I loved because it comes with design. It is not a transparent case, but a case with a faux leather finish, and also comes with this tab. Then watch the operation. We can place this case, and this tab, as you see, can be deployed so that the device is held as a stand. Obviously, this is focused on using the device deployed with its stand, and you have more viewing space. Because although the contents can be adapted when you have the device in this format, you have little space for viewing, so it seemed to me a smart case. Plus it notes that allows rotation. Then you could also put your device in this format if you wish. I think it is a well thought out case. Then in a moment we activate the screen to enjoy it in this way, but the case seems to me a good solution. Plus even with this tab, you could get to hold it a little bit more securely, although it does rotate, so you just have to be careful. It's very much appreciated, the incorporation of this element. Then let's get the device powered up, and while it's powered up, we see what else comes here in the box. For starters, we find the tool to remove the SIM card tray and watch, because it feels heavy. So if you bring charger, we're going to find this charger and its cable. It's a 66-watt charger, and it comes with a cable from USB-A to USB-C with these orange highlights. Of course, in this case, again, it's a charger that's not regionally adapted, but simply because it's a review unit. When you buy it in your region, obviously the charger will come with a corresponding adapter. So that's what comes in the box. And that's it. I already have this device here in my hands, configured to take a look at its specifications. Before I would like to remove the case and also invite his younger brother, or big brother as you want to call him, is the HUAWEI Mate X6. Is the previous version that is distributed in Mexico. Just for your knowledge, there was no HUAWEI Mate X4, and the X5 version was distributed only for China, although it was very similar to the X3. So it notes that there has been an evolution with respect to thickness. It also feels a little lighter device. And in the cameras is where now Huawei has incorporated sensors of even higher quality. And another curious fact is that in its launch price, we are seeing something a little cheaper in the new version. Interestingly, its thickness when unfolded is 4.6 millimeters and folded 9.85 millimeters. That is, it is already very close to the thickness that we find in traditional format devices. For example, for your reference, here it is compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max in dimensions. Note that it is even more compact when carrying it. And as I tell you, the thickness is pretty close. Its weight is 239 grams and we are going to find IPX8 resistance against water and also second generation Kunlun glass for the display. In addition, Huawei has noted that this frame comes with an aluminum even more resistant than the last generation. To be exact, it is 37% more resistant, so that in case of a fall, perfectly this aluminum frame can defend the device well. And the hinge that Huawei calls Falcon Wing is also state-of-the-art, so it comes made of aerospace-grade steel. It's a hinge that, as you can see, doesn't have any gaps and also feels nice and stiff and solid for these in-between folds, unlike other hinges that are a little bit loose or hanging. In this case, it looks like it's an excellent quality hinge that's also quite thin and light. So I think it is very good. In terms of design, it meets perfectly good aesthetics. Look at this cover. It has a quite interesting visual finish. The cuts also on the camera module that Huawei calls as star orbit design also gives a very nice touch to the device depending on how the reflections touch it. Good resistance with the screen, and Kunlun glass can be submerged up to 2 meters deep for 30 minutes in pure water. And definitely that all this confirms that the design meets very well both in aesthetics and resistance. The external screen has a diagonal of 6 and 45 inches, while the internal screen extends to 793 inches. In both cases, we see OLED technology with a variable refresh rate from 1 to 120 Hz, and the dimming rate is 1440 Hz, meaning that when you have the brightness at the lowest possible, your eye will not perceive the flickering, so you'll have a very comfortable visualization. The resolution of this external display is full HD, while on the internal part we find 2440 x 2240 pixels. It integrates a tremendous stereo sound system that really is of very good quality, so we have speakers on both sides, and as I say, at the time of having deployed the device you could also turn it. Although the sound is not completely symmetrical, since a speaker is at the top, another speaker is at the bottom, another speaker at the bottom, another speaker at the top, another speaker at the bottom, and so on. The sound system is not very good at the bottom, but it seems to me that in general, the sound system is also of good quality. Obviously, it does not bring headphone jack. It is an exaggeratedly thin device. For that, it has 2 front cameras, one on the outside and one on the inside. Both are 8 megapixels, only the aperture will be different. On the inside is f2.2 and on the outside is f2.4, but in both cases we are talking about front camera with fixed focus, so let's say it is simple. Notice, for example, that in the preview is not so optimized, but after taking the picture I think it improves in terms of light and shadow balance, but honestly in terms of color and in terms of detail I'm not so surprised. Although always in the foldables, I remind you that you can press this button and then unfold the device and you can take selfies using the main photographic system. So now notice how in the preview there is even better backlight optimization, and the result is also spectacular. In this case, even with the ultra-wide camera, you have lots and lots of space, good color, good balance, and good detail. And with the main camera, we are going to find even more attractive result because of the natural blur than because of the natural depth of field that is generated in the background. For the main system, we will first find the ultra-wide camera of 40 megapixels with f2.0 aperture RYB sensor. That is to say that it will have a tremendous light capture. Then we will find the main camera of 50 megapixels with variable aperture. Note that the diaphragm can be opened up to f1.4 or you can close it up to f4.0. Certainly those who know photography will appreciate this detail that is very uncommon in smartphones. In this case, in manual mode, you can manipulate this aperture. As I say, remember, it's not a simulated aperture like we might find on some other smartphones. It's a completely physical aperture. This camera also has RYB sensor, and in this case, optical stabilization. Then we will find the telemacro camera, i.e. serves both for zoom and macro shots of excellent quality, has a 48 megapixel sensor. Its aperture is f3.0, also has RYB sensor and optical stabilization. And in this case, this last camera, do not think that it is just decoration like other manufacturers. In this case, we are talking about an ultra chroma camera. It is in charge of capturing the color and supports 15 million spectral channels. In simple terms, the color of this camera is going to be exaggeratedly accurate, unlike other cameras that may have a white balance a little inconsistent in certain environments. In fact, you notice it immediately on the table. Usually in other unboxings, you realize that the preview looks very pale. This is because other manufacturers confuse a little bit this brown environment. Note, for example, in this case, I have the Galaxy S24 Ultra over here, And in this scenario where we see a little warm color in terms of its lighting, many cameras do this and put very pale the result. But thanks to this ultra chroma camera, this Huawei device is able to have very good color accuracy. But let's see some results. In this case, it is with the ultra-wide camera. The color looks very good, the gradient of the sky. It does not look overexposed or burned, and by the way, the screen has HDR technology. So in conjunction with the camera, some areas will have more brightness when viewing your photos. The main camera also gives us excellent results. Without a doubt, it is a camera that in terms of color is very accurate. Plus, it can also zoom within the sensor that in this case gives us a perspective of 48 millimeters, but still retains a good level of detail. The telephoto camera is 96 millimeters. That is to say that in terms of photography, it would have 4x optical zoom. And again, note that we're going to have a very accurate color, excellent level of detail. The truth is that it is a photography system that looks very powerful, something unusual in the foldable where there is usually very little space. Although, if the camera module comes to protrude from a little important, but if you do not want to have real sacrifices in a camera of a folding, this option looks very attractive. In fact, note, this would be the photograph with 10x zoom, and the truth is that it looks very good, practically as if it were optical zoom. It looks exaggeratedly good detail. This would be with 30x zoom, then 50x, and the maximum it allows is 100x. Where obviously we are not going to find an ultra-detailed photograph, but the capabilities it has are surprising. In terms of the full zoom range, it's incredible, and I'll tell you again, the telephoto camera has macro capabilities. So watch, for example, how we could zoom into too extreme a level, so you can even appreciate the texture of something. So it's incredible to see all this level of detail in something so tiny. In terms of video recording, note that it's going to support going up to 4K at 60 frames per second. And in this case, with any of the three cameras, in fact, the camera front can also record in 4K, although in this case only at 30 frames per second. The battery is 5,110 mAh, and considering that it is a fairly thin folding, the truth surprises this high capacity. It also supports 66 watts charging with charger included in the box, and it also supports wireless supercharge. That is to say, it receives up to 50 watts maximum with a compatible wireless charging base. In fact, it also has reverse wireless charging, so it does not make any kind of sacrifice in order to reduce the thickness. At the software level comes with MUI 15, which notes that Premiere's animations, that animation at the time of deploying or folding the device is quite nice. Obviously, you can configure the behavior if you want the screen to remain off when you fold the device or not. And notes how in this generation a new feature is released to have 3 applications open at the same time. One could be in a space, practically full screen, and quickly switch to the other apps present. In fact, with the gesture, you could again transform this application completely in full screen, and from this sidebar, you can go opening other applications in. This floating window format, see how having the split screen you can slide up to the top or so, and when you release there is that it transforms into this new format where you can have more applications open. At the same time, in fact, you can also change the space that is assigned to each application depending on how you want it to work, and as you know, you can also transform some of these applications in a floating window mode or reorder them according to what you want to use. So I think this new multitasking mode is very handy to have several applications running at the same time on your device, and through Micro G you will also be able to install the applications. Google, as you saw a moment ago, I have Google, I have YouTube, I also have access to Google Maps, Google Drive, Gmail, and whatever you want. In this case, I still do not have my session started, but perfectly we can start it. Remember that I have a complete tutorial where I show you how to install these applications. Micro G, and the rest is exactly the same for this device. And finally, the processor is a bit mysterious. Apparently is a new keyring called 9020, although that is not explicitly in the specifications that Huawei exhibits. But if you are interested in benchmarks, here would be the result in Geekbench. 1,562 points in single core, 4,853 in multi-core. On the other hand, in Antutu reaches 11 lakh, 63,008 points. What does this mean? Well, it is a fairly powerful processor, although not the most powerful of today, but I think that for the vast majority of users is a completely positive performance, so we are definitely in front of an excellent folding with